Otello could just be the greatest Italian opera. Certainly, in my opinion, it vies with only 3 or 4 others for the right to be regarded as the greatest Italian opera. It's one of the very few operatic works, in my opinion, which is as great as the play on which it is based.
Yes.
And yet it differs dramatically from that play in many ways. Renée, you're very familiar with
Well, it's
Otello.
interesting to me as well that for Verdi, in my 2 favorite operas of his are Otello and Falstaff, both Shakespearean treatments. But I have performed Desdemona not so many times, but it's certainly a part of my standard repertoire, and I absolutely love the opera. Every second has some fresh, vital, musical and dramatic moment, and the characters and the deconstruction of Otello through Iago is so painful to witness, and the audience really sits there no matter how many times you've seen it and says, no, don't, no, please.
Yes. It's interesting, my teacher in Italy, Franco Ferrara, always said the greatest Verdi opera was Rigoletto, and he didn't really approve of Otello and Falstaff because he thought that Verdi had been corrupted by that German fellow and thought he think it should be, and which is very interesting. There's a school of thought in Italy that says that, but for me, they are the two greatest, and
yes,
and so different from each other. I mean, you know, this wonderful comedy and the great tragedy, and the brilliance of the libretto, of course.
Boito's fantastic achievement in condensing the Shakespeare so effectively without apparently losing any of its depth, any of its subtlety, any of its richness. The loss of the Venice act, because as we know, the opera starts with the storm on Cyprus. It is one of the great openings of any opera, and for us to be opening our season with one of the greatest openings of any opera, I think is just fantastic.
Yeah, it's one of the great Italian storm scenes, of which, of course, there's a long tradition, but it's really so exciting. And that first entry of Otello, at the height of the storm, is just so thrilling and exciting.
The hardest challenge, I think, in presenting Otello was finding an Otello.
Yes, it is.
And, you know, since Placido Domingo retired the role, it's been very difficult. Johan has this extraordinary instrument and this beauty and size of sound, which are rare in combination.
That's right. His Walter in Meistersinger was just a brilliant example of that. And of course, when he did Lohengrin with us before, the fact that he has so much power and yet he can take the voice down to this beautiful lyrical.
Yes, this is Johan Botha we're talking about, a South African tenor who's happily a regular in lyric season. Renée, you've performed Desdemona with him as Otello.
Yes, and in fact, when we sang the duet together, I thought, no, this is a man who travels the world singing mostly Wagner. How on earth, I have a very lyric voice, will I be able to sing side by side with him? But as you said, he really does have enormous dynamic range, and he can bring the voice down. And I was perfectly comfortable. And Falk Struckmann is as villainous as they come as Iago, and clever, and the intelligence reads. He's such a singing actor.
Yes,
he's a fabulous Iago.
And you need that for this part, because the verbal detail that an Iago has to bring to the text is so important. For me, one of the interesting differences between the play and the opera is that arguably the most interesting character in the play is Iago. Othello is a little less interesting in some ways. In the opera, Otello is absolutely at the heart of this piece.
Because he musically is. I mean, Non mi tema at the end, when I did it very early in my career with Placido, I'm supposed to be dead, and the tears are streaming down my face, and I'm thinking, no close-ups, please no close-ups. Because it's so moving.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a wonderful soprano, another great lyric favorite, María Martínez, making her role debut as Desdemona.
Perfect. She's beautiful, and she has really made a tremendous career singing these kinds of lyrical roles, not necessarily bread and butter, but really interesting repertoire.
Yes.
And Rusalka as well, which I love her in. But I sang in this production when it premiered in 2001 with Peter Hall. And what a thrill to work with a great Shakespearean director.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that was the great thing about this production, to have someone who knows through and through both the opera and the play like that. And Peter, you know, my very first opera at Lyric was his production of Marriage of Figaro, which is one of the great classics.
It was.
Yes.
I remember it very well.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful production, actually, physically beautiful,
Yes.
modern, but sort of also one gets a sense of the Globe Theatre in London. It's an incredibly attractive set.
And when you sang Desdemona with us, when we last did the piece, making his US debut in the role of Cassio was Jonas Kaufmann.
Luxury casting.
yes.
And actually, I think we also have a very interesting young Italian tenor, Antonio Poli, who's making his US debut also in the role of Cassio.
Wonderful.
I heard him at the Salzburg Festival a few years ago, and he's really exceptional, and he'll be coming back to Lyric a couple of years down the road. And our conductor this time is Bertrand de Billy.
That's right. Who is making his debut with us, and looking very much forward to it. He conducts all over Europe, and he's conducted at the Met as well, I think. And he's a very important new addition to our conductors roster.
Yes.
Great.
So it'll be a hugely explosive, passionate, exciting opening production for our 13-14 season.